everybody, Reggie Time here with another rangefinder type hand. We're giving the results from the previous video in this video because guys do seem to like getting results for these sorts of things. We're not going to ever reveal the hands during the video because I think it leads people to be too subjective and too result orientated, but we're going to do it now. So we had 2 8s in the hand in question. We raised, we got 3-bet, we called. He didn't c-bet this flop, which made me start to think that he doesn't have an overpay, he doesn't have a flush draw. He can obviously have those hands, but I don't think he has them too often. So I called with my 2 8s. Hands I think he can have and play this way would be some like weaker Jack X that wants to go for a pot control. Of course, he can have the hands we mentioned earlier, and we're going for a check raise, but I think most of the time, most opponents in these games are going to bet those flops, especially on these like board textures where they see 2-2 a flush and what have you. So yep, we went for the call. And then the river came the Queen of Spades, and he leads out for $8. And as I said earlier, I just don't think people play flushes very often this way. So I'm not ruling out flushes because of course he can have them, but I don't think he has very many because I just don't think it's a line that players take with flush draws in 3-bet pots too often. Like check the flop, then just like bet turn, bet river. Yeah, of course they bet river when you get there with them, but I think if they go for the check on the flop, they usually go for the check on the turn too. I think if he does have a flush draw, it's more likely to be something like XX of hearts rather than XX of spades. And a hand like King Queen of Hearts would maybe make some sense here. Jack Queen of Hearts maybe too would make some sense. I don't think he's over pairs. I don't think he has spades too often. So I elected to just turn my 8s into a bluff and shove, expecting him to fold hands as strong as aces, kings. I think King Queen should fold. Whether it does or not, I don't know, but I think King Queen should fold here. Jack Queen's in a tough spot. And yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. If you do have a hand, even as strong as Jack Queen here, and you're calling these jams in the micro stakes, you're usually going to be very disappointed because how often do people really bluff in these spots in the micro stakes? I don't think it's very often at all. How often do you get raised on the river? You call with your some of your best bluff catchers, and you just get shown the nuts constantly, or hands that are close to the nuts. Yeah, it's a high variance, dangerous play. But I think if you don't think your opponent can have the nuts on the river, and whether that's because you block the nuts or just because you don't think they have it with the line they've taken, if you've got the balls and you've got the stones, you can get people off quite a lot of hands, especially if you've got the image like I've got. I mean, look at me, I'm pretty fucking nitty. With my image, I should be able to get people who don't know me, people who have stats on me only and don't really know much else about me. My stats should allow me quite a lot of reasons, like quite a lot of ways to bluff rivers when I think people don't have like super strong ranges. And I could have been wrong here. This guy could just have had a flush, or he could have flopped a set, or he could have rivered a set. But even if this guy got a hand as strong as 2-pair, I think he'd probably got to fold it. Most of the feedback I've got from this video with people saying if they were the villain, the hands they would be folding, they've said they were if they somehow had aces or kings or Jack Queen or Ace Queen or King Queen or Ace Jack, they would be folding pretty much all of those hands and only calling with like sets and flushes. So if people are like, maybe if assuming they don't have like 3s, 5s and 7s, say they just have Jacks and Queens, if they're going to fold everything that isn't a set here, or everything that's like worse than sets, we have so much, like in my opinion, we have tons and tons of fold equity because it's hard to make sets. And we don't think he's got to flush too often. So that's kind of what I based it on. I based it on hoping people would fold hands as low down as like Ace Queen, King Queen, something like that. So get King Queen and Ace Queen to fold, get Ace Jack to fold, and if he looks us up with a set or a flush, then fuck our lives. But if we're going to get him to fold all those hands, which given the feedback I've received, I expect we probably will against lots and lots of villains, then I think raising is a good play, certainly better than calling. I think folding, I think if I was going to play this hand any other way, I think raise would be the first way I'd play it in this exact situation. Fold would be the second, and the only time I call would probably be if I did a misclick or I was tilted off my brains. So yeah, I think raise is better than fold, which is better than call for this situation. But I'd be interested to see what you guys think of my analysis of that hand. So here we are with the next hand. We have XX in middle position. We raise 2, 3 big blinds. We get a caller, and the flop comes down 589 rainbow. We elect to check. So what do you think that says about our range here? And then our opponent bets 58 cents, and we decided to just call. So again, think about what our range for check calling a small bet looks like on this flop. Think about what our opponent's range for betting small on this flop may or may not look like, given the stats you can see, 25-15. With a 53-1 when stall flop over a small sample size. The stats aren't too important outside of the 25-15, which gives us a clue that he's a regular. That's some description. Turn comes an ace. Again, we check. Our opponent checks back. So again, think about what our range looks like, and now more critically think about what his range looks like. Is he capping his range here? Is he trapping? All those types of things. So think about what your range on the river would be for check calling. Again, what your range for leading might be on the river. If you decide that he's capped his range, what kind of hand would you want to bluff with? What kind of hand would you want to go for thin value with? What kind of hand would you want to go for fat value with? If you had like a truly monstrous hand here, what kind of size would you bet? What do you think your opponent's range looks like for like getting value from? And what parts of your opponent's range are you going to try and bluff him off if you have the type of hand you want to bluff with when you get to this river here? With whatever hand I had, I elected to lead out for just under 2/3 pot. Excuse me. And then our opponent raised. So what do you think everything looks like? Go back and play the hand through again if you want to. What do you think our hand looks like? What kind of hands do we have here? What hands should we be bet folding? What hands should we be bet calling? And what hands should we be shoving? Are you ever going to shove this as a bluff? Because you think your opponent's range is kind of maybe a little bit bullshitty. Are you going to shove for value? If you are shoving for value, which hands are you shoving for value? If you're calling, what parts of your range you're calling with, and what kind of range you're putting your opponent on that you think you can bluff catch with. Because when we are calling here, we are just bluff catching. So if you're calling, we think our opponent has bluffs. What bluffs do you think he has on this board? Is he turning a made hand into a bluff? Just go back and just think about how the hand's played out. Think about what your range looks like. Think about what your range looks like to your opponent, and then how you should be playing your range versus how your opponent maybe perceives your range, and vice versa. There's quite a lot to think about, because there always is when we can't see whole cards. And hopefully it'll help you guys think about hands in terms of ranges rather than specific, like, oh, we have XX here, so we should do this with it. It's not necessarily about what we should do with a specific hand. It's more to hopefully get people thinking about what ranges look like without the kind of knowing in the back of your mind, oh, I've got this hand, so I need to do this. It doesn't matter what our hand is. Try and just think about what our range is, what our opponent's range is, and how we should be playing different portions of our range in these spots. So yeah, let me know what you think of this hand too. Again, please let me know what you think of the format. Please do hit the thumbs up button if you like it, and if you don't like it, then I do apologise. There's plenty of other YouTube content out there, and I'm sure you'll find something that suits you. And we'll leave it there. I'll be back with another video probably pretty soon. Bye bye for now.